Australia's elite universities are at loggerheads with the government. The group of 8 have taken out full-page newspaper advertisements today, protesting against a government decision to link research funding with its efforts to get higher education reform through the Senate. Well, joining us now is Catriona Jackson, the CEO of Science and Technology Australia, the peak body representing scientists in Australia. Catriona, good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Now, what do you make of this linking of funding of these research programs with the government's higher education reforms?
Chris, scientists joined a week ago with 15 different groups, including the group of 8, calling on the government to de-link the fate of critical research infrastructure with their push to deregulate university fees. We don't understand why the two things have been linked in the first place. They really don't have much to do with each other. And as you said it very well, the NCREAS scheme is absolutely critical. It's been running for 10 years. There are 27 facilities all around the country. This is the backbone of the nation's research infrastructure, and it seems it's being put at risk for the fate of a quite different set of stuff. University deregulation, we don't understand why, and if the government doesn't de-link it very soon, a good number of those 27 facilities will fall over.
Okay, just explain these 27 facilities. What's the sort of work they're doing?
So they range from things like enormous marine observation systems that span entire oceans. They do things like work out what the conditions are like for fish. They measure temperature. They do all sorts of stuff. They helped find the MH370, or sorry, in the search for the MH370. They do things like measure weather. They're critical to things like in the recent Queensland and Darwin cyclones. They were able to measure how severe those cyclones were going to be. You can imagine how bad it would be if we didn't know something was going to ratchet up to a Category 5. That's just one of them. There are 27 of these around the country. They do stuff like medical research, and then they develop stuff. So there is a fantastic development out of one of the fabrication facilities down in Victoria. It's called a nanopatch. It delivers vaccine without pain and without refrigeration. You can imagine the implications that sort of development has for remote Australia, for the entire region. You can get your mumps, measles, rubella with a non-refrigerated little patch that just whacks onto you. So that's a really life-saving technology.
So these just sound to me like they're long-term research projects. What would the effect of, say, stopping money, even if it's just for 1 year?
They'll fall over. We had some testimony from a number of the people who run some of these facilities last week here in Parliament House. Some of them will fall over inside months. They simply can't survive without that operational funding. To give you a sense of perspective, this has been funded for the last 10 years. It was the brainchild of the Howard government. It was Julie Bishop launched it. She said at the time, this is about bedding down, making sure we have the big research infrastructure, the big expensive machines. It's not about test tubes and benches anymore. It's about huge supercomputers, great big fabrication facilities, the kind of things that mean we have a future in sort of advanced manufacturing, in all sorts of high-tech science. So these things are absolutely critical. They've been around for 10 years. As you say, these are really long-term research projects that have a lot of money, a lot of industry participation. If they aren't funded for 1 year, 1 year of operational money, a number of the 27, a large number of them, will simply not be able to operate. And you can't just turn these things back on again.
Well, the Education Minister, though, Christopher Pyne, has got a limited amount of money in his portfolio. Okay. He's trying to find savings. He's trying to get these changes through the Senate. He has to find savings somewhere. So isn't it fair enough that he has to look wherever he can to make savings, including in this area?
It's our view that this is a whole-of-government thing. I mean, there is virtually no area of government or human endeavour that these facilities don't touch, from health to industry to agriculture. They're all over the place. The government as a whole needs to find the money. This is $150 million worth of operational money. I know that sounds a lot to a normal person in the street. Compare it to the $2.5 billion capital investment the government has made over the last 10 years, the billion-odd dollars industry's already put in. That's a huge investment. We're putting that at risk for $150 million worth of money just for the 1 year. The government's running a review of this whole scheme to try and find some long-term sources of funding. Wouldn't it be a tragedy if, while they were running that review, the whole thing fell over because they couldn't find the $150 million for this year?
Okay, so the government's trying to pressure, persuade, cajole the crossbench senators to pass its higher education changes. What's your message to the crossbench senators?
These two things aren't linked. They need to go to the government and say, release this money, let this money flow. There's another discussion to have about the deregulation of the higher education sector. That's a very complex and possibly a long-running discussion. This has got nothing to do with it. We just can't let 27 facilities, 1,700 staff, 3,500 researchers working into them every day, developments, all sorts of fantastic Australian innovation and creativity go down the gurgler because these two things have been caught up in the deregulation fight.
Okay, Catriona Jackson, thanks for your time today.
Pleasure.